The sun had long set over the Xavier Institute, leaving the halls bathed in dim golden lamplight. The night was still, but inside Professor Xavier's study, an important conversation was about to unfold. Goku sat across from Xavier, his expression unusually serious. He wasn't sure why the professor had asked to speak with him privately, but something told him it was important. Goku, Xavier began, his voice calm yet firm. Do you ever wonder where you truly came from? Goku scratched his head. I mean, kinda. I know I don't really fit in here, but I figured that didn't matter much. I like it here. You guys are nice. Xavier folded his hands. That is reassuring to hear. But I must be honest with you, Goku, your presence in this world is an anomaly. You are not a mutant. Your power, your energy, it is something else entirely. Goku tilted his head. Huh. Guess that makes sense. I do feel different. Xavier hesitated before continuing. I took the liberty of scanning your mind earlier, but what I found was troubling. His eyes darkened slightly. Your memories are fractured, scattered? However, the visions I did see. He paused, as if searching for the right words. You come from a world very different from this one. I saw glimpses of battles beyond anything we have faced. Warriors with golden energy, entire planets in ruin, and a name. Goku leaned forward. A name? Xavier nodded. Saiyan. The word sent a shiver down Goku's spine, like an echo of something long forgotten. Saiyan? That sounds kinda familiar. Xavier studied him carefully. I believe that is your true heritage. Goku, you are not just a fighter, you are part of something much larger, a warrior race bred for battle. But your memories of them are locked away. Goku frowned, clenching his fists. Locked away? Why? That, I do not know, Xavier admitted, but I suspect there is a reason why you have forgotten. Your past may hold both answers and dangers. Goku stared down at his hands. It was strange, he had always taken life as it came, never really questioning himself beyond the next fight. But now he wanted to know. For the first time, he felt lost. Elsewhere in the mansion? Rogue sat in the lounge, arms crossed, unable to shake the feeling that something was wrong. She wasn't sure why, but she had been thinking about Goku more than she wanted to admit. At first she figured it was because he was too strong for his own good, or maybe because he annoyed the hell out of Scott. But now, she wasn't so sure. Something about him didn't add up. His strength, his carefree nature, the way he acted like nothing in the world could hurt him, it was like he was from another planet. And yet, at the same time, he felt more human than most people she knew. She let out a sigh, running a hand through her hair. That idiot's getting in my head. Before she could stew on it any longer, the sound of footsteps caught her attention. She turned just in time to see Goku walking down the hall, his usual goofy grin nowhere to be seen. Rogue's smirk faded. Hey, big guy, you good? Goku blinked, looking at her as if he had just realized she was there. Whoa. Hey, Rogue. She frowned. He wasn't acting like himself. What's wrong? Goku hesitated, then rubbed the back of his neck. Professor X told me some stuff. Said I might not be from this world. Rogue raised an eyebrow. No offense, but I kind of figured that already. Goku let out a small chuckle. Yeah, guess I do stick out, huh? Rogue leaned against the wall, watching him. So, what are you gonna do? Goku looked at his hands, clenching and unclenching them. I dunno. I wanna remember. I feel like it's important. But at the same time, I like it here. I like fighting for the good guys. Rogue studied him for a moment. Then, before she could overthink it, she reached out and lightly punched his arm. Then stop moping about it, she said, offering him a smirk. You're still you, right? So what if you're from outer space or whatever? You're still the same dumb, strong, eat everything in sight idiot I know. Goku blinked, then laughed, really laughed. The sound of it was warm, genuine. Heh, thanks, Rogue. She rolled her eyes. Don't mention it. For a moment, they just stood there in the dimly lit hallway. Then, without really thinking, Rogue muttered, You want to take a walk? Goku grinned. Sure. As they strolled through the quiet halls of the mansion, Rogue found herself feeling lighter. She didn't know where Goku's past would lead him. But for now, she was content just being there with him. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The night was cold, the sky a deep ocean of stars over Bayville. The streets were mostly empty, save for a few flickering streetlights and the distant hum of passing cars. Goku and Rogue walked side by side, their conversation light, but the unspoken tension between them lingered. Rogue wasn't sure why she had invited him to go for a walk. Maybe she just needed an excuse to clear her head. Or maybe she was starting to enjoy his company way too much. So, you really don't remember anything? Rogue asked, folding her arms against the chill. Goku shook his head. Bits and pieces. I remember fighting a lot. But not why. He looked up at the sky. Sometimes I feel like there's a part of me still out there, waiting for me to catch up. Rogue glanced at him. Sounds lonely. Goku gave her a small, sheepish smile. Not really. I got you guys now, right? Rogue's breath hitched slightly, but before she could respond, boom! The street ahead of them exploded. Flames erupted from the pavement as a massive shadow loomed through the smoke. Rogue coughed, covering her face as Goku instinctively stepped in front of her. Ah, hell, Rogue muttered. This ain't good. Through the clearing dust, the Brotherhood of Mutants emerged. Blob, Toad, Avalanche, and Mystique. Mystique stepped forward, her piercing yellow eyes locking onto Goku. Well, out past curfew? Goku scratched his head. Ha, you again? Mystique smirked. I told you, son Goku, this isn't over. Blob stomped forward, cracking his knuckles. Word is, you're the strongest thing to ever walk into Bayville. We figured we'd test that theory. Goku tilted his head. You wanna fight me? Avalanche smirked. More like crush you. Before Goku could respond, the ground beneath them began to shake. Cracks split across the pavement as Avalanche raised his hands, sending a massive tremor toward them. Rogue cursed. Move! Goku didn't move. Instead, he lifted one foot and stomped. Boom! The entire street shattered. The shockwave countered Avalanche's attack instantly, sending the Brotherhood stumbling. Goku blinked. Whoa! That was kinda cool. Rogue smirked. Show off. Mystique narrowed her eyes. Enough games. Take them down. Blob charged. The ground shook beneath his massive frame as he lunged straight for Goku. I'm unstoppable. Blob roared. Fists raised. Goku shrugged. Okay. Then, he simply poked Blob in the stomach. Boom! The impact sent Blob flying back, crashing into a parked car with a loud metallic crunch. The entire Brotherhood froze. Toad blinked. Well, that ain't fair. Rogue whistled. Damn, big guy. You got a cheat code or something? Avalanche gritted his teeth. Screw this. He sent another tremor straight at Goku, this time aiming to knock him off his feet. Goku yawned. Then, with a flick of his wrist, he sent a gust of wind so strong it blew Avalanche off his feet and into a lamppost. Toad gulped. Yeah, nope. He turned and ran. Mystique, however, didn't move. She stared at Goku, her sharp mind working. Strength beyond reason, speed that defied logic, and an energy unlike anything she had encountered. This wasn't a mutant. This was something else. You are going to change the world, son Goku, she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. Whether you want to or not. Then, before Goku could respond, she threw down a smoke bomb, and the Brotherhood was gone. Silence filled the wrecked street. Rogue let out a breath. Well, that was fun. Goku grinned. Yeah, you think they'll try again? Rogue snorted. Not after that ass kickin'. She turned to him, her smirk softening slightly. You know, you're kinda Amazon, big guy. Goku blinked. Huh? Before she could lose her nerve, she leaned up and kissed his cheek. Goku's eyes widened. Rogue stepped back, stuffing her hands into her pockets, her face slightly red. Don't get a big head bout it. Let's get back before Scott has an aneurysm. Goku just stood there, blinking. Then, slowly, a bright smile spread across his face. Okay. As they walked back toward the mansion, Rogue tried not to think about what she had just done. Tried. The X-mansion was quiet. Too quiet. Rogue sat on the steps outside, absent-mindedly flicking a coin between her fingers. The night air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of rain. It had been 2 days since the Brotherhood's ambush, but her mind wasn't on them. It was on him? She scowled, tossing the coin up and catching it. Damn it, she muttered under her breath. She wasn't the kind of girl who got all twisted up over a guy. Not ever. But Goku? Goku was different. There was something about him that got under her skin in a way she didn't know how to handle. He was stupidly strong, way too cheerful, and totally unbothered by anything, including the fact that she couldn't touch people without knocking them out cold. It wasn't fair. Before she could dwell on it any longer, a deafening explosion rocked the mansion. Rogue jumped to her feet, heart hammering. What the hell? A red glow lit up the sky, and suddenly, she wasn't just looking at the mansion anymore. She was looking at fire. Not just any fire, cosmic fire. And at the center of it all, Jean Grey, inside the mansion. Moments earlier, the X-Men gathered in the main hall, watching in horror as Jean clutched her head, body trembling with raw energy. Her eyes glowed a searing golden red, her entire form engulfed in flames. Jean! Scott rushed toward her, but an invisible force threw him back. Xavier's face was grim. It's happening, Logan snarled. What the hell is happening? The Phoenix, Xavier murmured. Her power is awakening. The fire surrounding Jean intensified, cracking the very walls of the mansion. Goku stepped forward, tilting his head. Huh, that energy feels weird. Cyclops pushed himself up, eyes wild. Goku, don't get near her. Too late. Jean's fiery gaze snapped toward Goku, and her expression twisted into something not human. You, she said, her voice layered with something ancient. You are not of this world. Goku blinked. Well, yeah, guess I'm not. Jean screamed. A blast of energy erupted from her, obliterating the ceiling and sending shockwaves through the mansion. Xavier's mental voice rang through everyone's heads. Everyone, evacuate now. Outside the mansion, the X-Men scrambled for cover as Jean, the Phoenix, rose into the sky, her flames turning the night into a burning dawn. Scott looked up at her, fear in his eyes. Jean, please, fight it. She didn't respond. She didn't even seem to recognize him. Rogue stared up at the sky. Ah, hell. Then she looked to her side, where Goku stood, completely unfazed. You're just gonna stand there? She asked. Goku crossed his arms. I dunno. I think she wants to fight. Rogue's jaw dropped. You cannot be serious. Jean's head snapped toward Goku, her voice a scorching whisper. You challenge me? Goku grinned. Sure, I love a good challenge. Then, she attacked. A massive column of fire shot toward him, hot enough to turn steel into liquid. Goku simply raised a hand. The flames parted around him like waves crashing against a rock. The X-Men stared. Cyclops' voice was barely above a whisper. You've gotta be kidding me. Goku looked at his hand, blinking. Huh. That tickled. Jean's expression twisted. Impossible. She raised both hands, gathering enough power to burn a hole through reality itself. The sky trembled, the clouds swirling violently above her, and Goku just grinned. Okay, my turn. Before anyone could react, Goku vanished. 1 second he was standing on the ground, the next, he was right in front of Jean, fist pulled back. Jean's eyes widened. Boom! A single punch, not even at full strength, sent Jean hurtling out of the sky, crashing into the distant forest with enough force to shake the ground. Silence. The flames flickered out, the air grew still. The X-Men just stared. Did he just? Goku dusted off his hands. Huh. She's really strong. That was fun. Scott looked like he was going to have an aneurysm. Did you just punch Jean into next week? Goku blinked. Yeah. Before anyone could process what just happened, Jean's burning aura reignited. She hovered back into the air, looking even stronger. A slow smirk curled on her lips. Good, she said, her voice thrumming with power. Again. Goku's grin widened. Now we're talkin'. Rogue groaned, rubbing her temples. I swear to God, I'm gonna lose my damn mind. The sky above the Xavier Institute burned. Jean, the Phoenix, hovered above the battlefield, flames rippling around her like a living inferno. Her golden red eyes were locked on Goku, filled with something beyond rage. She looked at him not as a friend, not as an ally, but as a challenge. Goku, on the other hand? He just looked excited. Man, I can feel your energy from here. He laughed, rolling his shoulders. This is gonna be fun. Rogue groaned. Goku, she's not playing around. Scott took a step forward. Jean, please, fight it. Don't let it control you. Phoenix's gaze didn't shift. There is no Jean Grey. A pillar of fire erupted from her hands, engulfing the ground where Goku stood. The flames roared, melting the pavement into molten slag. The sheer heat forced the X-Men back, shielding their faces as the fire consumed everything. Cyclops' heart dropped. Goku. Then, a gust of wind. The flames snuffed out instantly. And there, standing without a single burn on him, was Goku. Whoa! He shook off the dust. That was pretty hot. The X-Men stared. Phoenix narrowed her eyes. Impossible, she whispered. Goku grinned. Okay, my turn. Then he disappeared. Phoenix barely had time to react before Goku was in front of her, fist pulled back. Boom! The impact shook the air, sending Phoenix rocketing through the sky, her flames trailing behind her like a meteor. She barely managed to stop herself midair, golden embers falling around her. She smiled. You are different. Goku floated up to meet her, his grin unwavering. Yup. Phoenix's body flared, her energy doubling. The very air cracked under the weight of her power. Then let's see how much you can take. She vanished. And for the first time since arriving in this world, Goku felt a hit. Phoenix's palm slammed into his chest, sending him flying backward. The shockwave shattered windows across the institute. Before he could recover, she was on him again. A barrage of energy blasts rained down, each one exploding on impact. Boom! 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 Goku flipped midair, dodging most of them. But one clipped his shoulder, sending a burning pain through his skin. Whoa! He looked at the scorch mark on his G. That actually hurt a little. Phoenix smirked. Good. She raised her hands, and the sky turned gold. Clouds swirled violently as an enormous flaming sphere formed above her, pulsing with cosmic power. Rogue's heart stopped. She's gonna burn the whole place down. Scott turned to Xavier. Professor, what do we do? Xavier closed his eyes. There is nothing we can do. This is beyond us. The golden sphere grew larger. Phoenix's voice echoed through the sky. Burn. The attack dropped. The heat was unbearable. The moment it descended, the entire institute shook. Rogue braced herself. She had no idea if even Goku could survive this. Then, she heard him laugh. She snapped her head up just in time to see Goku catching the attack. With one hand, the massive fireball halted in midair, crackling violently against his palm. The sheer force of it caused the ground to crater beneath him. But Goku? He wasn't even sweating. The X-Men gawked. Cyclops took a shaky step back. That's insane. Goku whistled. Man, you really don't hold back, huh? Phoenix's expression twisted. You should be Ash by now. Goku just smirked. Wanna see something cool? Then, with a single flick of his wrist, he threw the fireball straight into space. The attack vanished beyond the clouds like a shooting star, disappearing into the night. Phoenix's jaw dropped. Goku cracked his knuckles. Okay, I think I'm warmed up now. Then, his energy spiked. The ground trembled. The air hummed. A golden aura erupted around him, shaking the entire battlefield. Rogue felt her breath catch. Oh hell! Scott shielded his eyes from the sheer brightness. What is he? Then, Goku's hair turned gold. His black locks flashed into golden spikes, his eyes burning with an emerald green glow. The X-Men froze. Oh, Jean whispered, her voice suddenly her own. Phoenix's flames flickered. Goku grinned. Wanna go again? Silence hung over the battlefield. Goku floated midair, golden aura crackling around him. His emerald green eyes locked onto Phoenix. Jean, or what was left of her, stared back, lips slightly parted, her flames flickering uncertainly. For the first time, the Phoenix hesitated. Scott's breath caught in his throat. Jean? Jean shuddered as if something inside her was breaking apart. Her eyes flashed between gold and familiar hazel. No, Phoenix rasped, shaking her head violently. No, I am eternal. Her fire roared back to life. The sky darkened, the very air shaking under the force of her power. Goku tilted his head. Huh? You okay? Phoenix snarled. You will burn. She lunged. But this time, Goku didn't let her. Boom! The entire world seemed to tremble as he vanished, reappearing behind her in an instant. Before she could react, he chopped her on the back of the neck. Phoenix's eyes widened. Then, her flames died, her golden aura flickered out, and Jean Grey collapsed. The sky returned to normal. The mansion stopped shaking. The night air was still once more. The X-Men stared in absolute shock. Scott ran forward, catching Jean in his arms before she hit the ground. Jean! His voice was frantic. Jean, wake up. She stirred, eyelids fluttering. Her voice was weak. But hers? Scott? Scott let out a shaky breath, holding her close. You're okay. You're gonna be okay. Xavier exhaled, his hands relaxing on the arms of his wheelchair. It's over. A few hours later, the mansion was a wreck. Smoke still rose from the damaged areas, but miraculously, no one was hurt. Jean was resting in the medical bay, weak but stable. The Phoenix Force had retreated for now. And Goku? He was packing. Rogue watched from the doorway as he stuffed a ridiculous amount of food into a duffel bag. She scowled. The hell do you think you're doing? Goku blinked. Packing? Yeah. I can see that, genius, she shot back. Why? Goku rubbed the back of his neck. I dunno. I guess I feel like I should go. Rogue froze. Go? Where? Goku shrugged. Dunno. He smiled. But I feel like there's something out there I need to find. Something important. Rogue's stomach twisted. So, that's it? You're just leaving? Goku hesitated. I mean, yeah. Rogue clenched her fists. You dumbass. Goku blinked. Huh? Rogue stormed up to him, jabbing a finger into his chest. You show up out of nowhere, shake up my whole damn life, make me care about you, and then you just leave. Goku stared. Rogue's chest heaved, her heart pounding. For a second, neither of them spoke. Then, Goku grinned. You care about me? Rogue's face turned bright red. That's not the point, you idiot. Goku laughed. Aw, come on, Rogue. It's not forever. She glared at him, eyes flashing. You don't know that. Goku's expression softened. A rare moment of seriousness flickered across his face as he lifted a hand, then stopped. He wanted to touch her, to reassure her, but he knew he couldn't. So instead, he just smiled. I'll come back. Rogue swallowed hard. Promise? He nodded. Promise? And somehow, she believed him. The next morning, the X-Men gathered outside as Goku stood near the mansion's entrance, duffel bag slung over his shoulder. Scott crossed his arms. You sure about this? Goku nodded. Yup. Jean, still a little weak, gave him a small smile. Thank you, Goku, for everything. Goku beamed. No problem. Logan smirked. Heh. Try not to get into too much trouble, kid. Goku laughed. No promises. Finally, he turned to Rogue. She stood there, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. See ya around, big guy, she muttered. Goku grinned. See ya around. Then, with a final wave, he took off into the sky. The X-Men watched until he vanished beyond the clouds. Rogue stood there the longest. Her fingers curled into fists. Her heart ached, but deep down, she knew he'd be back. The days after Goku's departure were strange. The X-Mansion was still standing, barely, but it felt emptier. Scott focused on repairs, Jean spent time recovering, and Xavier had endless discussions about what the Phoenix incident meant for the future. Logan trained harder, as usual. And Rogue? Rogue felt restless. She wouldn't admit it out loud. But the mansion felt different without that big, dumb, overly powerful Saiyan bouncing around. She still expected to hear him raiding the fridge at night. Still expected to see him floating in midair, meditating, or just napping. Still expected to hear that stupid, cheerful laugh that made everything seem a little less heavy. Instead, there was just silence. One evening, Xavier's study. Professor X sat quietly, deep in thought, when Rogue stepped inside. Something on your mind, Rogue? He asked knowingly. Rogue shifted uncomfortably, folding her arms. You saw it, right? What he did. The way he handled the Phoenix like it was nothing. Xavier nodded. Yes. Goku's power is unlike anything we've encountered. Rogue hesitated, then took a deep breath. So what happens when someone else like him shows up? Someone not as nice? Xavier was silent for a moment. Then, he folded his hands. That, my dear Rogue, is why we must always be prepared. Her jaw tightened. Yeah, guess so. She turned to leave, but before she could step out, Rogue, Xavier said gently. She paused. You miss him. Rogue froze. Her throat tightened, but she just scoffed. TCH. He's an idiot. Xavier smiled knowingly. Yes, but he's your idiot. Rogue didn't respond. She just walked out. Somewhere, far beyond the X-Mansion, the wind howled through the cliffs of a distant mountain range. A lone figure stood at the peak, gazing up at the stars. Goku. His golden hair had faded back to black, but his eyes still gleamed with excitement. The fight with Phoenix had been fun, but now he wanted more. Somewhere out there, he knew stronger opponents existed. He could feel it, but still, his mind drifted back to a certain scowling, sarcastic, southern-accented mutant. Heh, he chuckled to himself. She's probably mad at me right now. For a moment, he considered going back early, just to see her reaction. But nah, a promise was a promise. He'd return when the time was right. Until then, he'd keep getting stronger, keep pushing forward, because that's what a Saiyan does. Goku took a deep breath, then clenched his fists, his aura sparking to life. A new adventure was calling, and he was ready.